I have every class I've ever taught, I always, and lots of you will remember this, I always have them take an end of the quarter or an end of the semester, like, survey, right? Of what did you like, what didn't you like? And guys, I've been teaching creative writing this is my 13th year teaching creative writing, and I've taught it multiple times per year. So if you really do the math, I've basically taught creative writing probably, I'm up to about 35 classes of creative writing. So I've gotten rid of most of the stuff that kids told me that they didn't like. And I shouldn't even say most. I got rid of all of it. If the survey results don't say that at least 80% of the class liked that project, then I just get rid of it. We used to do like a children's book project. Not enough kids liked it. Boom, it's gone. Stuff like that. This one not only is liked, it gets really high rankings that kids end up, like, at the beginning, this is a little bit weird because it's a very different kind of creative writing than we've done before. But by the end, lots of kids have cool aha moments because of this project. So, I meant to get this earlier, and I'm so sorry, so you have to wait while I walk back and grab this. This actually, I got this idea way back when I was still in college, and I want to show you that this is a legitimate thing. I actually have two, I'll just call it this one. So, this whole idea of a multi-genre or multi-genre, like, story or essay was created not that long ago. In the world of writing, there's lots of changes. We've done one recently, right? That was our Choose Your Own Adventure. Choose Your Own Adventures have only existed since, like, I think the 70s, right? Same with multi-genre writing. It was this dude named Tom Romano. And I had a whole class in college where we talked about the benefits of multi-genre writing. So let's make sure we all understand. Somebody tell me your definition. When I say the word genre, what does that mean to you? You can give me an example, you can tell me a definition. I want to hear a couple so we can see how there might not be just one right answer. Tell me one. What's a genre?
Multiple types of show, like horror, comedy, kids, puppets, stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so that's one right answer.
Type.
Yes, Kate. So type. What does it mean to you? Genre.
Genre is like
Okay, maybe a different way of telling the story. What does it mean to you? Different ways of writing. Yeah, I think all of you are right. And so if you look at the I can statement, and it's also right on the assignment, but basically we're going to force your brain to shift how you think about writing. Go ahead and show me your screens, everybody. It won't take too long today, but there are some important things. So I want your full undivided attention. Phone should be away, and show me your screens unless you're one of my creative writing 2 kids. Okay, so really what we're forcing your brain to do is think about our traditional way of storytelling, which for us, like Free Friday, right? That's a normal way of storytelling. I tell a short story, I start at the beginning, and I go until the end. That's normal. We're gonna totally mess with normal. And we're gonna tell one story through a bunch of different types of writing. Most of us are so used to short stories by this point, we really don't need that very much anymore. What we need now is to challenge ourselves, and that's what this project does. So when I was in college, and when I used to be an English teacher, not creative writing and debate, I would do this same thing, but for essays. So instead of a traditional 5-paragraph essay, we would write a multi-genre essay, where they would still basically be like reporting on whatever it was that they were researching, but the writing was a bunch of different styles of writing. So I think the easiest way, and some of you might have already started looking, I think the easiest way to wrap your brain around this is to see some examples. So these are real examples that I got permission from former creative writing kids. This was a kid who did this during the pandemic. His name was Owen. And Owen, during the pandemic, didn't have a lot to do. And so he gave this way more effort than I'm expecting. I'm going to show you this because it's a good quality example, but I don't want this freaking you out because I do not expect yours looks as perfect as Owen's does. But he told the story of a spy. So you're still telling a story in a multi-genre story, okay? But you're going to show the story, like he started with telling his story with what you can see is clearly a ripped off note. So he had to go through the effort of not only making it look like a note, but then to make it look as though it had been ripped apart. So then the next piece of his story is a message that popped up on this computer. He created all of this. He made it look like an actual message that was on a computer. So most people do it on Google Slides, but there's lots of options, which we will talk about more in just a minute. Yeah. The next piece of his story, because again, multi-genre is basically a bunch of different pieces telling one story. So the next one, you can tell, looks like what would be called, oh my gosh, it's not coming to me. A transcript is what it's called. That it almost looks a little bit like a script. Reporter says this. The Vanchester said this. Reporter Vanchester, right? And that's called a transcript, where it's literally just the written version of what was said out loud. Okay, so then he's telling the next piece of the story with a piece of graffiti that he made himself. Then we've got a classified document. All of this was faked. This project can feel a little weird sometimes. Like, I'm almost training you how to, I don't know, like, lie, kind of. Although I guess that's kind of what creative writing is a bunch of the time, right? We're making fake stuff seem real. But he went and looked up examples of real classified documents and then tried to copycat it himself. So then we've got, let's see, a manuscript of a conversation. I'm just going to flip through a little bit quicker here. We've got a news report. We've got an obituary. So think of how he's showing the story. Rather than just writing the story like a normal short story, we're showing it with all these different pieces. So multi-genre stories are a little bit more segmented. They're not quite as smooth as a normal story because we're showing each little bit in a different piece. And that does take time to get used to. Steele, what's your question so far? No, so I love that you asked that. We are still telling a story, but it's going to be piece by piece by piece. A bunch of different types of writing. So we're still just telling one story. Like his whole story here was about a spy who went on a secret mission and encountered a conflict. Just like any story has a character and has a conflict and has a setting, but you're showing your story through other types of writing, not just a normal short story. Yes.
So it's basically like this is what he like multiple hints all leading together to a huge story.
It's almost like leaving a trail of breadcrumbs, right? Like each breadcrumb is a different type of writing. Maybe it's an email, maybe it's a text message, maybe it's a piece of graffiti, maybe it's a letter, maybe it's a transcript. Right, and so that is going to feel weird, you guys. When you start this project, it doesn't feel as cohesive on your screen facing me as a normal short story, and that's okay. Let's look at another example quick here. This person approached hers completely differently. That the first one we had was like a spy story. This one is more of like a love story, but it still has a conflict. You can see that was like a hospital bill. We've got this like invitation. We've got diary entries. We have a to-do list. We have announcements. We have a parent-teacher conference. But the whole thing ends up kind of being like a love story, but shown in a really different way. Okay? And again, these people created each piece of this story and then added it all together to then tell one overarching story. This is another cool one because they kind of were inspired by Owens and wanted to do like a cool spy thriller kind of an idea. But the story you tell, as I'm flipping through, as you can see examples here, the story you tell, you still get to choose. You have total freedom, guys. If you really love stories about pirates, do a pirate story. If you really love super gory, super scary, do a super gory, super scary, right? It is completely up to you what story you tell. I'm going to show you another quick example of when I first did this project before a lot of stuff happened on Canvas. This was one that was made by hand. And I know it's sideways and that's annoying, but I'll scroll through a little bit. You can see they had text messages right there. Oh, it's upside down. That's annoying. You've got a diary entry. You have a receipt that they made it look like a real receipt. We've got all sorts of different pieces. You have a map. You have notes passed in class. You have a warning sign. This was the story of somebody like surfing and having like an encounter that was not very fun. So just because we're doing it online nowadays doesn't mean that you're still not going to try and make it look legitimate. That's a big part of this, is how to make whatever the fake thing is look like it would look like in real life. So that's this part right here. I'm not going to go over every single little bit of this. I've been collecting resources every single semester. I add on to this list and make it longer. So if you see the first one, there's this website will help you make a newspaper article look like the real thing. It does a lot of the formatting for you. Sometimes you'll get lucky. Sometimes you'll run into a website like Canva or like this one where it already has the template for you and you just have to put in the information. Sometimes though it won't exist, which means you have to go find that thing in real life and then try and mimic it, try and copy and make it look legitimate. I've got one that will make like a genuine looking receipt, one that will make a news, like a social media like profile. There's one that will make real looking text messages even though they're fake. So sometimes just by Googling, like text message generator, stuff like that, there are some that exist. Sometimes they don't, and you'll just have to create it yourself, okay? So then this is your huge, huge master list of genres, of different types of writing. Because most people will start out with the ones they're comfortable with, like emails and text messages. And then you're going to have to start branching out, because you will tell your one story with 8 different pieces of the story. Yeah. It could be a story about anything you want. Yes, it could be. Yep. You would have to make sure it's still school appropriate. That one could get really sketchy really quick, right? So you would have to be careful in that way. But look at the list. I'm going to scroll through a little bit. Some of these are very just real life, right? Some of them would take a little extra effort. So you'll end up doing a variety of different types of writing. There's lots of different ways to approach storytelling here. And as I scroll through to the bottom of the list, this is also a project that has a lot of art involved, but maybe not like typical art. So out of your 8 different pieces of the story, you have to do 8. 3 of them can be art. You can still tell your story through art. But look at all the genres of art, guys. There's not just drawings. It could be a collage, a postcard, a comic, a diagram, a map, a tattoo, a building blueprint, origami, right? There's all sorts of different genres or types of art, just like there are different types or genres of writing. So 3 of your 8 could be art. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and so this will be just like any project we do, that I'm requiring you tell your story with at least 8 different pieces or 8 different genres. And then if you met that, great, but you will have to do extra if there is extra time. I would say a very average amount is 10. In the amount of time I'm going to give you during class, you'll probably be able to do at least 10. But I have had some, I had a girl get up to, I had to give her, I think, 64 coins a couple of semesters ago. How many did you get when you did it? Do you remember? Probably a lot. I don't know. Yeah, it's really, really easy to get a bunch of extra. So you will be required to do more than 8, but I also am not trying to totally kill you off. 8 is a very manageable amount. So if you look at the calendar with me, so we are here. Today we're just about to brainstorm in a second. Tomorrow will be your first official writing day. 1, 2, 3. Friday is a party, so we won't work on this at all on Friday. And then there's no school for students next Monday. And then you'll have 4, 5, 6, 7. So you'll have 7 class periods to do 8 genres, which is going to be just fine. Some of the genres are really short and easy. Some of them take no time at all. And so you are required to pick a variety of genres. So let me talk about the brainstorm, and then I'm going to set you loose, and then I'm almost done. So Ollie, screen facing me. So on the brainstorm, there are 2 different pieces to the brainstorm, okay? And let me make a copy here so you can see. The first piece is just helping you think of your story, because that's where you have to start. You have to have a story before you can do anything else. I went to a writing conference one time. It was really cool. It's called Teen Author Boot Camp. And the author who was presenting for a certain class, she said this is how she plans. Every single novel she's ever written, this is exactly what she does. So this first section is really just fill in the blank, and it's going to help you think about the story itself. Am I telling the story of somebody going to prom? Am I telling the story of somebody finding buried treasure? Am I telling the story of a zombie apocalypse? Whatever you want, that's where you have to start, is the story itself. Yeah. Sure, why not? There's always juxtaposition, right? So then the second piece is you're going to spend time reading through my master list of genres, my types of writing, and you're going to make your plan. And you're going to think, okay, here's the 8 different pieces I think I'm going to represent my story with. They might end up changing later, and that's okay. But it does make the whole project easier if you kind of make your plan of attack before you do any of the writing piece. So what you're going to do is highlight the 8 different ones you're choosing on doing. You could highlight more than 8 if there's others that caught your eye. But you're going to go through and start thinking, maybe I could start with telling my story through a receipt. And then the next piece of my story, I like the idea of kind of like reporting on it. And the next piece of my story, I'm going to show it with a website or internet history or like a search history, right? You remember how many of them could be art? 3. So all the art is at the bottom. And again, it's totally fine if your ideas end up changing, but this brainstorm hopefully will make starting the project a little easier. And the big question, I'll answer after yours. Yeah, you ask yours first. It can all, like, I think the second example I showed you, hers, she didn't really do any art, although it still ended up looking kind of artistic, but she really focused more on the writing. I incorporated some art just because I know lots of you are artists, and I like the idea of there's lots of ways to tell a story. And so it's there if you want, but it's not required. That's a good question. Other questions? Yes? You do need to do the brainstorm because not only does it help me know that you're on the right track, but it also should make the project easier when you've got your plan of attack. Okay, so the big question is, can we work with partners? So the answer, I've never let this be a partner project before, but typically our behavior is really good. The only thing is, and Lily will attest to this because she really helped with counting like our choose your own adventure, but it was a pain in the neck. So for purposes of grading, I have huge creative writing classes right now, which I love, but it does make grading take hours and hours longer. So to make it easier, you can, as long as conversations stay appropriate, you can sit where you want, and you can have a story that coordinates with somebody else's story, but they would have to create their own 8 pieces, and you would create your own 8 pieces, but they could end up like matching together. Like, for example, maybe the person I work with, they're telling the first half of the story and I'm telling the second half of the story. When we turn it in, you're going to turn it in as completely separate documents, because that was one of the things that took us so long when we did Choose Your Own Adventure that I just kind of didn't foresee. They could also be like overlapping, where we're telling a piece of the story. It's the same piece of the story, but in 2 different ways. You can still collaborate and still talk through what you're creating, but everyone, when we turn it in, will turn it in on their own separate document, even if your story technically does collaborate with somebody else. I don't feel like I explained that very clearly, though. Does that make sense? Is that like actually? Yeah. Okay. So your goal in the last little bit today is, number 1, do your brainstorm. And remember, focus, the brainstorm has 2 different sections. If it were me, I would probably come look at these examples from the multi-genre story project information. I would probably look at the examples a little bit more before I get started. Then I would talk through my story idea. I would talk through it with somebody. Be like, hey, here's my idea. What do you think about this? What do you think I could do to make it cooler or more exciting? And then, if you still have time, slowly start creating your first piece of your story. Like, create whatever Google Doc you're going to do it on. Or, I really don't recommend Google Docs because they don't give you a lot of formatting capabilities. So I definitely recommend Google Slides more than Google Docs. But you can also do it on Canva if you're comfortable with Canva. And Canva does have a lot of templates already made. The only downside is when they don't have a template that you need, it's a little less user-friendly to insert something that you created somewhere else into Canva, but it's still doable. It's just, if you're easily frustrated with technology, I would probably go the Google Slides route, because it's a little easier to just input stuff from different places into one. Okay, you may turn your screens facing you, but I want to make sure, are there any other questions before I officially say go? So steps, start your brainstorm. Talk through your story. Read through the entire list, people. Read through the whole list of genres. If you have time, start creating the first piece of your story. Okay, go. So